BBC Radio Berkshire with Andrew Peach. Well, we've been on the air this morning then. We've got this new website, heathrowconsultation.com, where you can type your postcode in. It will tell you whether you're at risk of being under the new flight paths as they change the flight paths, ready for the airport to expand, ready for the third runway. There'll be winners and losers, I've been hearing from Heathrow director Emma Gilthorpe.
We want to hear people's feedback on what may be, for example, the special local factors we should take into account if planes were to fly in those geographic areas. And it's really important that we give people the opportunity to shape how we route those flight paths in future.
So, I mean, for people who are under the flight path, they'd just like it not to get any louder and possibly to get quieter. That seems unlikely when you're talking about thousands more flights a year. The people at real risk here who really need to try and take part are people who are not currently experiencing aircraft noise at all. People like those who live in Bracknell and suddenly, when you experimented in the past with changing flight paths, had a load of aircraft noise that they'd never had before.
So you are right to say that there will always be winners and losers when it comes to aircraft noise. We are wanting to guarantee periods of respite to all of our communities, whether they're close into the airport or whether they're further away in areas like Bracknell, because if those areas are to have flights introduced overhead, then we want to make sure that they have guaranteed periods where there won't be flights there as well. It's really important that we get people's views, as I say, on the local factors that they want us to take into account, because, you know, there are some big positive changes that are coming from this as well. As I said, we stand by our promise to introduce a scheduled ban on night flights when we introduce a third runway at Heathrow. We want to, end the stacking that happens over some communities nearer to Heathrow. So in order to do that, we need to design really efficient airspace, so that when flight paths do go over people's homes, they do so in the most efficient and, of course, the quietest route.
If you live in Slough or Windsor, you already have a lot of plane noise. If you live somewhere like Bracknell or Wokingham or Reading or Henley, you know, people a little bit further away, are we saying that those people might now get plane noise with planes in and out of Heathrow?
There will inevitably be winners and losers at different places around the airport, which is why guaranteed respite and our commitment to that is so important. But this is the second of 3 stages of consultation. This is starting to narrow the geographic areas that we think may be affected, and it won't be until the 3rd stage of consultation that you will have precise knowledge. But that is why it is so important that at this stage we get people's feedback, because it will impact ultimately where those flight paths might end up.
OK, so that's Emma Gilthorpe, Director of Expansion at Heathrow. Here's what you're saying. David Hendy says, Peachy, I've tried again using my iMac with the latest Safari and now the website works. All I get with my Henley postcode is your postcode is within an area where flight paths may be positioned in the future. But we're already under the holding circle pattern when they're coming in from this side. I mean, from what Emma was saying, there ought to be less holding, isn't there, under these new arrangements. But thank you very much indeed for that. Gary says this public consultation is nothing more than a PR exercise. At the end of the day, they'll just do what's best for them, not for everyone else. All right, we've got John in Windsor, Sunita in Datchet. Morning, guys.
Good morning.
Morning.
So you could be the winner here, John, we think. We reckon that actually Windsor, because there'll be a proper break and whatever, might get fewer planes over than it does now.
Well, that would be very welcome, Andrew, but what we're missing is the fact that this proposal is accompanied by the idea or the proposal that there should be 25,000 more flights.
Yes.
Now, as you know...
that's a year, by the way, not per day. But
yes,
25,000
right.
per year, it's about 60 per day.
And as you know, for the third runway, there'll be 260,000 more flights. That's 10 times as many. And I think what's being missed at the moment, and it'll come out, of course, is the pollution. The air noise pollution, of course, is very clear, but the air pollution is the real killer. 40,000 people a year in the UK dying unnecessarily. And
well, they of course will say, I know what the aviation industry will say. If they were here, they'll say, yeah, but in the way that planes make so much less noise, they're also much less polluting than they would have been if you were talking about planes in the past.
They deliver a quarter of the total pollution from transport at the moment. That's the government's own figures. And this is obviously going to get worse if there are more flights.
So, as far as you're concerned, there's no good news. If there's a respite, if the flights come over Windsor a bit later in the morning, if there's a break, then great. But actually, overall, it's still Heathrow expanding and causing more problems.
You're right in that the reduction in flights over Heathrow is, of course, immensely welcome. Anybody coming to the town when the planes are going overhead knows the noise is horrendous. But we mustn't miss the fact that the air pollution is a killer. And what we need is to actually remove the flights away from Heathrow. Fat chance of that, I know. But that's the real solution to this problem. And noise is going to be very much in the frame at the moment. But don't forget the air pollution issues.
All right, John, here's aviation expert. Oh, by the way, let me know if you put your own postcode into the website, heathrowconsultation.com. It's not the simplest thing to use, but let me know what it tells you about where you live. That'd be really useful as we try and piece the story together. Here's aviation expert John Stewart from HACAN Clear Skies, anti-Heathrow campaigner, with his thoughts on the show.
I actually think this is quite a big change that's being proposed. It's almost like a revolution in the way that Heathrow are going to be flying the planes. They are. I think from what Emma Gilhurst was saying just now, I think the thing that we would welcome is the fact that all areas, as far as I can make out, are going to be guaranteed a break from the noise each day, are going to be guaranteed some sort of respite. So there's going to be no more of this all-day flying, which people hate. The people who will lose out in the Berkshire area are people who may be not overflown right now, who will have some planes, not all day long, but will have some planes. However, I think there will be some winners here. For example, Windsor, when planes are arriving over the town, get planes all day long. What's now going to happen is that they will get a break from the noise. We don't know how many hours, but there will be a break. So it's a pretty significant change that's being proposed here.
And there will, over time, there will be more flights, though, and then they'll say that the technology makes them quieter. So it's hard to know if you're in Windsor whether it's going to be actually better than now or just won't get any worse than now. But the big change will be for communities who don't have plane noise at all.
I think that's right, and I think those are the communities primarily who will be under the flight path of a new third runway if it's built. So places like Eton right now, which can hear planes but are not directly under a flight path, they will be directly under the flight path to a third runway. As Emma Gilthorpe said, probably not all day long. They will get a break from the noise, but they will be getting noise for the first time, and those people will undoubtedly be worse off, even although some of their neighbours, I think many people in Windsor, could be better off than they are today.
Thank you very much indeed, John. Kevin Byrne now, aviation expert. Hi, Kevin.
Good morning, Andrew.
We've all been having a look at this website since it was published just a few minutes ago.
We have. Yes.
It's not the easiest, but it seemed, if you type in, for example, I've typed in the postcode for South Hill Park, which is the arts centre in Bracknell. It tells me that planes will be flying overhead between 3,000 and 4,000 feet, and there could be up to 47 per hour.
I don't know. It's an interesting piece of work, and what will I say? I have to say on behalf of Heathrow, they want to be good neighbours, although I don't have any shares in the company in that regard. I have a particular interest in the Third Runway because as a student at Loughborough back in 1992, we formed a group of students and put a Third Runway in, and the current potential runway is actually much bigger and longer than that. So I have an interest in seeing this. It's taken a long time to get this far, 27 years, and we're still not too far along, I think, in that regard.
We're still talking about it, really, about the flight paths, about the Third Runway, about expanding Heathrow, etc., etc. From your chance to have a quick look, which places in our area on this side of Heathrow ought to be worried?
The point about the Heathrow Airport is, and I've just looked at confirmed it, which I knew, 70% of the aircraft departing and landing are heading west on the 27 left and right because the wind directs that happen. So 30% of them will be, taking off to the east into London city centre, so to speak. So, anywhere from sort of Maidenhead down to Bracknell is going to be affected. They're not quite affected now because the noise footprint, and it's quite clearly indicated on page 7 of the website, in 74 you had 825 square kilometres affected by noise. That shrunk to 2013's figure of 108 square kilometres. But I want to see a contour map of the third runway in, and that's not actually obvious anywhere. That would be very useful, but that will affect areas probably up towards Gerrards Cross and Uxbridge and so forth. So the other point I want to make about aircraft heading west, they do climb quite quickly. The newer brand of aircraft, particularly your Boeing 737 MAXs and your 787s, make much less noise. So at 4,000 feet, in fact, the Boeing claim you will not hear the 787. So if that's the type of aircraft that's going to be used, and it will become the norm, this quieter aircraft, new Airbuses and so forth, they're significantly reducing the amount of noise they make. In the case of the 787 MAX compared to the 800, it is 10% quieter, and that's good news for anybody living in Bracknell or Maidenhead or up to High Wycombe.
That's aviation expert Kevin Byrne. Have you done this? Have you got a chance to go on your phone, go on your computer now, heathrowconsultation.com, type your postcode in and let me know what it tells you for your area.